This tutorial is part of our full stack React Django DRF channels project, DJ Chat. You can watch this tutorial and many more from our YouTube course playlist, or the whole course, including access to additional resources from our Udemy course. The Udemy course link, which provides the best price for the course, is in the video description. Right, so let's start this off by creating a pages directory, which is typically used to contain components that represent individual pages of the application. So we're going to build the home component, which is the main component that's going to be utilized for when users navigate to the root of our application or the root of our website. Typically the pages folder. Now, it's worth saying that there are multiple ways of structuring a React project. So this is just one way. Now, typically you'll find the pages folder inside SRC. So pretty much all the work we do in terms of creating new components is going to be in the SRC, the source folder here. Right, so let's create a new folder called pages. That's going to have a lowercase, and inside of here we'll create a new component, a new file, and we'll call that home, and that's going to have a capital. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to, but just follow general conventions. That's going to have a capital. Right, so we could call that home page, we could call it home, we could call it index, we could call it main. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to call this home. Right, so I'm going to make the assumption that you are completely new to React. So what we got here then is that we need to define a functional component called home. So let's go through this in each line. So first of all, then we declare a new constant variable called home. So const home. And there are different approaches to this. We could use function home, but we're going to use this approach, which some might consider a more modern approach. There we go. So the second approach here, you might see function home. So these are equivalent. Now, the reason why we might use this type of approach here, which is an arrow function syntax to create the functional component, is it's considered by some as a more concise way of creating a component, which makes it popular, like I said, or more popular approach potentially. Now, the const home syntax declares a new constant variable home. So we've created this new variable home, and this is going to hold the arrow function. So inside of this constant here, it's going to hold whatever is inside of this curly braces. So let's now add some code inside. So typically what we're going to need is a return. So this is what's actually, so basically we're going to call this home component, if you like, and then it's going to return whatever we ask it to return. Typically that's going to be some sort of code. So inside of this return here, what we're going to need to do is define something we want to actually return. Now what we can do here is we can use the angle brackets. So this is a shorthand syntax for a React fragment, which is used to group multiple elements together without adding an extra wrapper element to the DOM. So what we can do is use these angle brackets here. So instead of using a div or something like that, HTML div, etc., I can use these placeholders, if you like, which, like I said, they won't get added as an extra wrapping when they're outputted into, for example, HTML. So what I can do here is now define other elements. So take, for example, here I can add, for example, a p tag, add some text. Let's call this home. Now, if I wanted to do something like this, for example, it's important to remember that this isn't going to work. So everything needs to be wrapped up. Notice all the red lines here. So there needs to be a container here if we're going to return something like this. So that's an important point to make when we're developing. Right. Okay. So there we have the basics. So notice that there is still an issue potentially. So what we're going to need to do is just export this or make it exportable. So export default home. And there we go. So what we can do now is we can call this home from maybe a different component, and then we can access whatever it turns, for example. So now we have this new component, we are going to need to tell React that we want to use it as our homepage. So let's take a look in the next tutorial how we can set up routing.